Hello again, and welcome to another episode of Effing the Ineffable. I'm Lonnie Milbus, and today I've got a kind of an impromptu session here. There's a question posted on a Facebook group that I belong to about different questions. Actually, a few questions started popping up about astral projection, and I find that these questions come up all the time, and it's really hard to point someone to any particular reference material. As I'm aware, there's just so little out there that provides practical and simple information about astral projection. There are exercises and things like that, but one's mostly seems that one is left to their own devices to a large degree. And while there's value in this, in that I think so much of it's open to interpretation and individualized methods, it's also, I think it would be of service to present something and present someone's ideas, which in this case are mine, just to give someone a framework of what it is and how one can succeed, particularly in the work of AA, because it's such a huge stumbling block for so many neophytes, or so I'm told, that's the primary reason that they fail, is essentially what you get is the expectation of it. So I'll be treating it as I've experienced through the work of AA. For those who are not any part of AA, don't know what AA is, it's not Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a mystical scientific system of mystical attainment, essentially the system of yoga, or with ceremonial magic fused with it, kind of a dual method system that is scientific, created by Aleister Crowley. Anyway, I won't go too deep into that. I'd rather just say, for those who aren't familiar with it in this context, astral projection is a sort of guided meditation that is typically mostly self-guided that becomes not guided. So that you guide yourself to, in my case, in my method, literally a doorway, and you walk through the doorway, and then it is no longer a guided meditation. It then becomes receptive. So why would someone want to do this? Why would someone not in AA want to work with astral projection? Well, its purpose within AA is it develops the intuitive faculties. It develops us to intuitive psychic abilities. It decreases the reliance on the physical senses for disseminating or discerning information. It in the AA system, it's where you go from the material into the formative worlds of the Kabbalists, and it's very integral. It's an integral part of that process. So it teaches one also the receptive state necessary for prayer, which is one of the central tenets of and techniques of all mystical systems. Prayer or meditation being interchangeable terms in this particular usage. Prayer it's the opposite of a power or an assertion. It's not a pushing out of oneself. Or an attempt to manipulate. It's a yielding and a receptivity, in the sense of, related to deity, prayer is letting God's grace flow through you into the world. And astral projection it's a lower form of that. And for lack of a better term, I use lower, but it's a stepping stone in that process, a way to use the more human faculties. I mean, I say human, it's another word. You run into word problems here, but it's not unnecessary. It's lower in the sense that it's not working with the all of the universe so much as a particular set of symbols. In order to learn to discern what is valid and an accurate source of information as opposed to random thought that are imposed by our conditioning and worldly experiences. That's probably the best way I can put that. It is required of neophytes of the AA to master the astral plane, or the test is that you're given we'll say, symbol that is unknown, previously unknown to you, and you are to astrally project that symbol and into a realm or environment and discern the nature of the symbol from the elements of that environment. And that's the test. And most neophytes, they'll fail. When they fail, at least as I understand it, because they're unable to yield the expectation of what that looks like, and how success is determined, and how the success in astral projection will manifest. They have a set idea of what this will look like, and of course, with most things that are worth learning, you get there and you realize that, hey, this isn't anything like I thought it would be. So the reason for these failures is they expect instead of adapt. Whereas you have to be receptive to, hey, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm just going to be as focused on my perception as I can and try to figure out what the heck is going on. So in that case, if, a common one is I'm not seeing anything. Why am I not seeing anything? I'm failing at this. I'm no good at this. And that's not a healthy approach for it. It's not a receptive approach. It should be that when they say, my visions just won't behave, they won't do these things. At a point like that, it's important to ask, okay, I didn't see anything, but what was I thinking? Did I think anything that's relevant or noteworthy? Like, what was my mind doing? You should be able to, if you're doing it properly, recount everything your mind did during that time. Oh, well, I thought about this, and I thought about the grocery list, and and then I had this weird thought about, like, dragons, and then I went on, and then you'd say, well, that dragon thing kind of it doesn't really seem like my worldly experience, so perhaps there's something to that, and then examine those thoughts more carefully. That actually could be your reception of the information from the astral realm. Or some may assert that it's the unconscious, but we're not going to get into the that kind of psychological analysis or anything of it. We're just going to treat it as it's treated within the traditional systems of magic. So in these senses, vision should not be taken literally. It's an astral vision, but all senses, you're not using your eyeballs on the astral plane to interpret through your brain light reflecting off of objects. So your vision is false in the material sense upon the astral plane. So it doesn't matter which sense you're using. If you're getting the information through feelings or flashes of intuition or sound or just language and narrative, if the information is correct, that means the method is correct, that you're on the right track. It doesn't matter if it's a vision or not. And at the neophyte level, we learn how to recognize which of these experiences for our own individual astral instrument is useful and which is not. And we learn to define the success in our own personal terms because everyone's different. So one should keep an open mind and try to, as much as possible, to reject expectation. Just be aware and alert of what happens and be noting things. So my method, we'll get into that primarily, is I learned from directly from David Shoemaker. He teaches a class on this, and it's basically I'll start out with I've had some people say that, I just can't I'm not good at astral projection. And this is for the visual, but you can use this for any of the senses. That I would say close your eyes. So if you would do that, you can get this idea or this lesson. So close your eyes and just breathe. And now draw a circle in the sand. Now when I said that, if you felt anything, like maybe you felt sand on your virtual fingers, or you did see, in fact, you see a color of the sand, you saw the circle, maybe you saw a surrounding environment, maybe you smelled the ocean, or smelled the dust, or the sound, or the texture, anything. If there was any sensory anything, when I said draw a circle in the sand with your eyes closed, then you have all the tools necessary to do this. All you need is an imagination, and that creative faculty will tap into the subconscious and bring the receptivity to the astral realm about. So with those tools in mind, I'm going to go through visual methods. I always start with a visual method, even though my reception of astral material is not always visual. Sometimes it's narrative, sometimes it's just psychic flashes of insights, and I'm just filled with this like downloaded knowledge, or sometimes it's musical or sound. But I start with vision because it's the easiest way to move the consciousness, and it's partially based on Crowley's methods in Liber O. But so you close your eyes, you get in your meditative posture, you're in your temple or wherever you need to be to get the clear headspace. And you imagine your astral double. First you have to create a duplicate of your body. And you do that, and it's standing beside you or behind you or wherever is convenient for you, but just make sure it's an accurate double and it has all the necessary body parts and seems to align with who your physical form is, or what your physical form looks like. Then you transfer your consciousness into that form. And usually the way that I verify that this has happened is when I've done that, I look back upon my body, my physical body, and see that it looks like I remember or as I perceive. Oftentimes, I will kind of be aware of both at once. So this isn't mentioned in Crowley's works, but I think it's a huge stumbling block if you're expecting to be completely unaware of your physical body the whole time. I have done all of the astral tasks, received initiation astrally, done astral ritual with varying degrees of awareness of both bodies. And they usually vacillate in and out. They don't stick one to one or the other. But anyway, at this point, you want to look back. I look back on my physical body. So you want to make sure the consciousness is transferred. And then in your astral body, start rising. And it doesn't have to be rising. This is my technique. Anything that works for you might work. I know someone that actually goes underwater. That works for that person. But I rise, and I rise in a very particular manner, but I'm not going to taint your experience too much with mine. But you rise and rise and rise and rise until you've left the earth, and there's no longer any remnant of the physical world that we currently live in other than your body. Some people see the sky, I don't know. But you rise up and to a point to where you've kind of lost the consciousness of the whole material world. And at that point, you present a door within your vision. And you're doing this consciously, you're imagining this. There's a door, and whatever thing you seek to scry or to explore should be represented by the color, any symbols upon that door. So, for instance, if you're doing Venus, you would have a green door with the Venusian symbol, female symbol also, whatever it's used for. But in any case, there's always a symbol that you can come up with that's related to the topic that you're looking for, and just depends on your creativity, what that's going to look like. So you create a door that, to your best ability, represents what you're trying to explore. Then you open the door, you walk through the door, and I shut the door, and you begin. You call upon beings or whatever you prefer, beings or thoughts or something of that, the nature of that particular realm, to come to you and to guide you and to answer your questions. So when you call upon them, something comes. Typically, if not, walk forward through into the world more until there's some more scenery appearing or something starts to happen. There seems to be some mental activity, and then ask again. When something arrives or a thought arrives, you want to test it, and you can test it in the best way you know how. As David Shoemaker's method was, you can use thelemic, because he's a Thelemite, and use a thelemic doctrine or from the book of the law. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. You say that, and the being or it should reply, love is the law, love under will. And this is going to be you're going to be able to test generally across all quarters and all areas of the astral realm. Or you could use something that's particular to the whatever symbol or whatever idea you're exploring. But whatever works for you, you want to test and do some kind of formal verification there, just to kind of seat yourself in that consciousness. Then you start asking your questions. You can ask to be shown around and all of that, and this is it. It's going to start to loosen up, and it's not going to be so guided. Sometimes you'll start traveling, and at this point you kind of want to let go of the conscious projections upon this realm and focus more on a receptivity of, hey, what can I perceive now? And when that's done, you return to your body, recording your information. Very important to return to your body in a conscious manner. I again use a method I think I got from David Shoemaker, where I get in a chariot and I see it returning to my body. I like look upon my body. I'm visualizing my body and me coming toward it, and then I sit down in it or stand in it in exactly the form, and I consciously become aware of the whole body and both beings together, sealed. I kind of tense up my muscles to lock the two together in my consciousness, and then I do the sign of silence, which is a right forefinger pressing the lower lip against the upper lip, and assume the God form appropriate to that. But any way it works for you, just make sure you seal yourself back in your body. I'm not really sure whether or not this is like a superstition kind of thing that you can go crazy or you're open to astral attack if not, but I just do it because the feeling that I get when I do it feels right to me. And I've heard that it's very, very important. So why not? That's one thing it's not going to hurt me to do that. So I do it, and I've never really tried not to do it. I know when I've done it kind of lazily, I don't really feel as good afterward, and sometimes some crazy things have happened. Anyway, so alertness and receptivity are paramount when you're on that journey. So there's going to be some things in that process where there's room for doubt. So when you're on the projection and you're in the astral realm, questions can arise in your own mind of, am I making this up? And where is this? Is this really coming from something else? Is this coming from me? You need to let that stuff go. That's a big one. That's a big stumbling block, because the astral process relies on conscious and unconscious faculties. Some elements of a vision may feel made up or consciously created. Scrutiny of the relevance of the information is our only measure of success at first. So ignore, it doesn't matter if you feel like you made this up as if you're writing a poem or you're writing a piece of music. It doesn't matter if it feels like it came to you completely spontaneously without your involvement. Those things are inconsequential and unnecessary hangups, because this work can utilize the conscious and the unconscious, the physical and the mental, all aspects of being. And you have to just be still and aware and receptive. Alertness and receptivity are paramount here. So don't get caught up in what is the nature of this message. Get caught up in, hey, was this accurate? You know, and of course, if you already knew this was going to be part of it and you knew it would be accurate, then yeah, I mean, it's not really going to be anything that's going to indicate success or not. But if it's something kind of out there, kind of like it didn't seem like it, you didn't think about it before you started the vision, and then it came out during that process, and hey, look, it really lines up, then that's something that could be counted, checked as a success in the exercise. So you have to adapt. You have to adapt to things not going as expected. For instance, there came a time when I found that I was doing Liber Samek and Supreme Ritual and, every once in a while lesser banishings or, anything like that. And my eyes being closed, I would be more aware of the physical body than if they were open. And this is kind of an example of the adaptation that I decided that, hey, maybe I don't have to have my eyes closed as long as my consciousness is still in the astral body. And so I started doing this work with my eyes open, and I found that I really wasn't any more or less aware of the physical body with the eyes open as I was in the other. Some kind of weird things happened, like I would get, my body would turn upside down, and I'd become simultaneously aware of both bodies, and it was the potential for distraction was there. But, I just focused in and said, okay, just draw the pentagrams correctly. Just do this, just keep it going. And if I'm keeping it going from the astral body, it's working. So you have to really just be open and be accepting of any way that you are going to make this happen. And it can get weird. It can, you just have to accept it, be aware, and note everything. But on that note, having the necessary skills. Some people say it's very difficult to visualize or focus, and of course meditation is the only way to get there. Some help can be provided by doing dharana, focusing on shapes. Some of the exercises from the first exercise from Batra Kofrano Bu'ukazmakia, and maybe the other exercises too, but the one with, like, I counted rice. You put rice on the table, covered up. You don't see how many grains of rice are there. You lift a paper really fast, maybe a second or two, put the paper back down, and you use your mental image to count the rice grains. And you gradually increase these rice grains, the number of these rice grains, as you progress. And that's another way to build that skill. Assumption of God forms works, and just, lying on your back on some grass in a park or something on a partly cloudy day and looking up at the clouds, just zoning out on them and seeing shapes like, hey, do I see a dragon or, whatever shapes. That's that imaginative faculty. That's, it's not really a bird, it's a cloud, and you're seeing it as a bird. So you're using this imaginative faculty that's useful for the astral work in doing that. So all of those things can help. Anything that works for you. Okay, so, and that also points to where we can't get too caught up in what's conscious and unconscious, whether this is real or unreal. Already what we see in our physical lives is perception. It's not truth. What you see with your eyeballs is light reflecting off of basically just coagulations, conglomerations of energy, reflecting light into your eyeballs. Your brain's interpreting that from previous experience, and you're seeing your vision of what's there. But somebody else may have a completely different vision, especially if they're a few feet to your right or your left. They're going to see it differently. So getting caught up in whether what I saw was real or not is an illusion on top of an illusion. There's no benefit to getting caught up in that stuff. You just note what you see and compare it to the symbol, compare it to what is known, compare it to what is researchable about what you're exploring. So I hope this helps answer some questions you may have about astral projection. Again, it can come in narrative form. I remember several instances of my first scrying of Enochian aethers where I was, frustrated sitting there, and I remember remarking that I've never had so much nothing happen at once than the first few times that I tried scrying the Enochian aethers. It was absolute silence and void and nothingness. And that was frustrating to me, because I was looking really hard. It's like I was straining my astral eyes to see something. And when I finally had success, the first was visions, but it was also that I was letting my thoughts become a narrative of language, because I knew that there was something happening inside of me. I could just feel something. And it wasn't what I wanted to see with my eyes or what I expected as a success, but it came as like a narrative, and it came in the form of like a narrative that you would see in a novel. And then I realized that was valid. The information that was being presented matched what I was, later when I examined it, it matched what it was supposed to. In fact, the first aether I had, I matched it with what was in the vision and the voice for that aether, and there were a lot of similarities. I was really shocked because I hadn't read that book in any recent time frame. There was no way I could have known. And it matched pretty closely in some of the symbolism, and it didn't come as visions. It was narrative. It was just some kind of impulse within that I can't even describe thoroughly. But that was translated by my mind into language, and I just wrote that language down. I didn't feel like there was like some other being telling me things. I felt like, hey, I'm just making this crap up. It felt the same as when I write poetry, in fact. And so I wrote it out, and then I, thought later I looked it up. It was like, wow, that was very close to what that aether was, the way that aether was perceived by Crowley. So you really need to be open to just noting anything that happens, period. This is what I thought. This is what I heard. This is what I smelled. This is what my mind did. This was the feeling. This is where the feeling was in my body. All of that stuff. And opening yourself up so that some kind of narrative can come out of that. And hopefully that helps. So that is my first treatment on astral projection. I hope that there are some useful things that somebody finds helpful in their practical experience here. And if you have any questions or any suggestions about it, please let me know in one way or another in the comments, on the Facebook group, or by any other means you have with which to contact me. So that's it. I thank you for listening, and I will be talking again with you later on. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.